Before beginning the installation, make sure you gather and review the necessary reports, installation guides, and wiring diagrams you need. Taking the time to review these documents ahead of time will save you hours of troubleshooting at the end of your installation. The Control4 should provide 3 reports generated in Composer Pro for the electrician: a panel report, a module report, and a load schedule. This is an example of the panel report. In this project we have a large can and a small can. You can see here we have the panel name, its location, and also the panel type. This is an example of the module report. You'll see here the module type, its breaker, and also the load number, its name, and its location, and also the wattage. This is an example of the load schedule. You see here the load number, the load name, its location, and where it's connected inside the panel. The installation guides provide step-by-step details on the physical installation of the panels, the terminal blocks, and the modules. The wiring guides clearly show the proper wiring connections for each of the different types of terminal blocks and modules. So today we're going to talk about panelized lighting. There's 2 types of panels. There's a 5-slot and a 2-slot. Obviously the 5 is going to be a little larger. That's what we have before us here. When you mount this thing, you want to mount it so there's top. There's a little itty bitty word here called top. You'll notice that the top has the grounding strips on the left-hand side. You always want to do that. If not, it's going to look like a pretty funny finished product if you have this thing upside down. Some of the main things to mount this, there's 2 different options to mount this. You can do it surface mount like this or flush mount. If we talk about the surface mount, the larger can has 6 holes, and you have 6 holes to mount it in, as far as these 6 screws. And you need to use some heavy-duty screws. This can is heavy. It's going to have a lot of power wire in it and some modules in it, and so you want to at least get some screws that can hold 100 pounds each. You know, some larger lag bolts or whatever you need there. The smaller panel has 4 holes in it. The second way to mount this is flush mount, where this can's actually going to be sitting behind the wall and in the wall. The things you want to consider with that, as far as how deep are you going to mount this can, you've got to take in consideration obviously the finished material, whether it's sheetrock or some wood or whatever it's going to be. And then you want to, when you're mounting it, there are slots in the side here to where you can set this can in. Now this can is meant to sit between a 16 on center stud bay, but if the studs are a touch bit wider, what we recommend is to hug one stud, secure it that way, and then just put the screw in this side. But you don't want to tighten this screw on this side so much to flex the can, or the lid or the cover is not going to go on properly. So another suggestion here is to put the screw right in the middle of this little slot right there, so you can adjust it after the fact. If the finished material is thicker than you thought, you can pull it in and out, so that the front panel goes right on it for a very clean look. Now there are other options. In order to do this with the flush mount, there's this divider right here. This is the class 1, class 2 divider, and this high or low voltage. So your low voltage is going to be on this side, all your high voltage is going to be on this side. We need this divider obviously for legal reasons. This divider can move, so if you have most of the wires coming in here, coming in through the top, then you have to then you can move this over, or you can adjust it. It's fully adjustable. But in order to flush mount this, you'll have to take off this divider, and there's also one at the bottom. Okay, so the next part we want to talk about is we've got the can already mounted. So we're going to look at our report. This report would have been done beforehand. If it hadn't, then you better do the report before going any further. So we've got our panel report right here. It's telling me that in this very first slot right here is where the dimmer goes. And it also tells me what wires in the house go at this point. So at this point right now, it's probably best to mount these blocks and then run all the Romex into this, so that you know exactly where to run it in and how much room you have to terminate your ground wires and the rest of your load wires. So now we're going to talk about the terminal blocks. Our report told us that a dimmer terminal block goes in this first slot. So there's different terminal blocks. We'll talk about the others in just a moment, but you'll notice that the red and the blue are always on top with any of the blocks. So what we'll do is, you'll see multiple holes here, multiple slots. I've already put one screw in there to help with this instruction. And you'll see that it just mounts right in with a couple of screws. Very nice. So what I recommend is mounting these terminal blocks before you pull the Romex in the can. Therefore, you can see how much space you have. You can see how much space you have to work with as far as bringing all the ground wires down this area to actually hit the ground strips, and then you'll be able to know exactly where We know exactly where to mount the other ones. Now the next terminal block right here, this is the relay terminal block. Our report tells us that it goes in the next slot below. According to our panel report, we went ahead and installed all the terminal blocks. You can see we've got the dimmer one here that we showed before. We've got a relay one. You can see that you can tell it's a relay because it's twice as many blacks on it. Now right here's the 0 to 10 volt, and then another dimmer module. And then down here is the one for the network switch. It's the exact same. The network switch and the 0 to 10 volt are the exact same terminal blocks. Now that we've got these installed, we're going to have now we know exactly the clearance we have for our wiring and also for our ground, where we can tie in our grounds.